Welcome to National Signing Day 2020, where we get to meet the newest members of the Grizzly football program, 22 in total. So we'll bring you the show here in the next half hour. So, of course, head football coach Robbie Hauck is here, sports information director Eric Tabor as well, and we'll have a fun, full day, Coach. So this will be the first of many. We get the fresh look here before you say this about 5-6 times throughout the day.
Yeah, I should just let you and Tabes run with this, but you guys are good at it. I'm kind of the guy, the football coach that you stick in front of the camera that mumbles through it. But
I'll start memorizing.
all right,
now.
good. Yeah. So the interesting thing is this is sort of a rhetorical exercise for us today, or just out of tradition, or something like that, because we signed almost everybody in December. It's really not a day where we had much going on going into this day. We'll talk about the 3 that signed on board this morning, but it's really been done for almost 2 months.
3 transfers in the mix as well, 8 Montana natives. Again, we'll go through the entire list. It's a full day for Grizzly football. Quarterback Club luncheon will be this afternoon before going up to Polson and Mackenzie River at 3 o'clock, and then the Hilton Garden Inn in Kalispell at 5:30. So, again, hope you can join us if you're in the area for any of that. And, Coach, I guess just general thoughts, first off, on your 3rd signing class here, coming off a 10-win season, a quarterfinal appearance, just to keep the momentum going here for Grizzly football.
Yeah, there's a couple things that really come to mind, Riley. I think the first one is that the enthusiasm level for Grizzly football in Montana and in the region, or even the entire western United States, is high. It's fun to walk into schools or kids' homes and have people just kind of address the fact that the Griz are back in business. And having our first 10-win season since 2009 was huge for us. We really feel like we're moving the program forward. It's where we think it ought to be, and you know that's what the goal was here when you and Tabes and our athletic director stood there and said, this is the vision for what we're going to do in the 2 years moving forward. So going into the 3rd year in the 3rd recruiting class, certainly it's much less hectic than that first year when we were trying to get, it was the first year of 2 signing dates. We're trying to put the class together. Everybody's coming from, staff-wise, is coming from different points. We didn't know any of the players' names hardly. That was crazy. I think that when we look back on that class, we'll find that recruiting class was solid, which is, I think, the ultimate goal in terms of slapping it together like that. But then moving forward last year and this year, I think as we look at these 2 classes, and we really won't know about them for a couple more years, but I think when we look at these 2 classes, if these kids will stick with it and they will hang together, they're going to have records for their class that are close to being unrivaled.
Coach, no bones about it. There's always a lot of Montana kids on the University of Montana roster. You make that a point of emphasis, obviously, but we've got 8 of them this year, and your thoughts on those 8, and maybe just the general strength of Montana high school football in general. Are there a lot of good players out there?
Well, we've got 8 in this class, Tabes, as you mentioned. We'll add a couple more. Obviously, now that I've been here for as many years as I have in 2 different stretches, recruiting Montana is a priority for me personally, and thus for our program and our staff. I like high school football in Montana. I think it's for the number of kids that are playing, because we do have a great, big, huge, sparsely populated state. I think the level of football is excellent. I think the kids have some great things about them in terms of work ethic and desire to improve and competitiveness. I think a lot of that's because they grow up playing a lot of different sports. And so we have an affinity for Montana kids, as we should. We're the University of Montana. We should have Montana guys in our recruiting class. So the recruiting always starts with Montana kids. They're the ones that we really kind of try to prioritize in our early evaluations. But also, with that being said, I think that because of where we're located, a lot of small town kids, a lot of kids playing multiple sports, that our guys develop later in the game of football. You know, they're not single sport guys that are playing it and in lifting programs and personal trainers and all 7-on-7 leagues and all that other nonsense that you see around the country. They are playing they're playing sports in all seasons. the sophistication level often in football, even though the technique and fundamentals are good, a lot of times the sophistication level is not near that of the college game. So they're late bloomers. And so you get a guy like Henry Noose, who nobody ever heard of his name last year at this time or even last spring, and then all of a sudden you get into, he came to camp and he's coming to games and we're watching him, all of a sudden he appears and he's in our signing class.
I'm going to put you on the spot early, as you should expect no less, Coach. When you look at this class, top to bottom, about immediate impact guys, maybe guys that can come in and provide that depth and competition that really is what's risen this program up in the last couple of years, Coach. When you take a look at this, or when you guys were evaluating, how many maybe immediate impact guys do you see?
Well, I don't know. I hope none. And, you know, they've all been kind of told that in their homes, that the best thing that could ever happen for you is for you to redshirt and save your what's going to be your best football for the end of your eligibility. When you start using the eligibility up early on, you know, everybody likes to see which freshmen are going to play, but the fact of the matter is, in 5 years, these kids are going to be men. They aren't now. They're high school kids. And so it's not about how ready they are this fall to play a play or two. It's more about, you know, who are they going to be in 5 years and what are their capabilities going to be. So we hope to redshirt them all. Certainly when you look at the chance to compete and play, you're probably looking more heavily at the skill position guys just because it's less physical. It doesn't mean they're the best players in the class. It means they're closest to the people they're going to have to compete against in terms of the hand-to-hand combat aspect of it.
And, you know, we talked about this briefly, Coach, but everybody on this list is pretty much known to everybody in the state right now, anybody that follows Griz football, because we announced most of them in December. So just your thoughts on how does the early signing period in December change your strategy, if at all, and you know, what have you been doing since December into today?
Well, it doesn't change strategy a whole bunch. Most of the time, by the middle or 1st of December, even when the signing date was the first Wednesday in February, you had your class targeted. I mean, there was the occasional late ad. Most of the time it was somebody, though, that you had vetted and watched. It wasn't somebody that you didn't know about. So it doesn't change your strategy. What it does is, I think it obviously speeds the process up a bit, but I don't think tremendously so. And the other part of it is it makes recruiting more relaxed for everybody. The kids and the families getting recruited, and then our coaching staff. I mean, recruiting now is so stress-free in terms of signing date and getting what you need to do to cover your recruiting plan and your board. And then this year was extremely relaxed, and last year too, where we just didn't have anything going down the stretch. We had signed them all, and you know, we got to, just anecdotally this year, we got to the middle of November. We had a pool of guys that we liked, and I told our staff that, you know, we know these guys. We know about their academics, their football, and their character, and so we're going to sign off of this list. And then if we don't fill up our class and our needs, then we'll go out in January and reassess and go get to Plan B, and they all jumped in and signed. So it's been I think it's been great for kids, it's been great for coaches, and it's made the process more healthy, in my opinion.
And 19 of the 22 members of the Grizzly football team that we're going to meet here in a second did sign in that early period. So we'll start going down the list, alphabetical order. That's how we decided on this one. And we'll go, Coach, we'll break down the film a little bit. We will. And we'll start with Eric Barker, a big tight end from Oregon.
So Eric's a high school quarterback. He came to our camp this summer. He's built like a kid, tight end. He is a tight end. Sometimes, oftentimes, at the high school level, you're playing your best player at quarterback, and he's just a great player out of the Salem area, Kaiser High School and McNary High School in Kaiser, Oregon, and he's a really fine-looking tight end.
Next man down the list is actually one of today's signees, just about an hour ago, actually, Peyton Brammer, who's a wide receiver in high school, going to play tight end for the Griz here, Bush Prairie, Washington. But he's a guy who got 1,000 yards as a junior receiving and only played 8 games as a senior and had about 700 yards there, so he can make some plays.
Yeah, so Peyton's a guy who is coming off a knee injury. So he's probably a little bit under-recruited. His high school's east of Vancouver, just on the Washington side of the Columbia River. I think he's a steal for us. Obviously, he's got to come off a knee injury and do a bunch of rehab and that. But Peyton's a guy off his junior film that had a lot of interest in the recruiting process, and we're lucky that he decided to jump in. And we'll see how fast he can come back off of that knee. But we've got a plan for that, and we're really excited to have him.
Another guy that drew a ton of interest, even at the Pac-12 level, coach, is Brandon Casey. 5-sport athlete, big athletic offensive lineman. Tell us more about him.
Well, Brandon's a great kid, great family. They're from Sandpoint, Idaho, which is, for those that don't know, is just right up in the top north end of the Panhandle. It's a great place, and the best part of it is it's near to Missoula, Montana. In fact, we kind of recruit that area of Idaho like an in-state area because, frankly, those guys are closer to us than 2/3 of the state of Montana kids. So his parents fell in love with the place. He was here for camp. He was here for numerous games. When Brent Peace recruited Brandon, we were pretty ecstatic. He's a big-time guy. He's got a great frame. He can run. He's a good basketball player. But, I think that a lot of guys that are head coaches sit here on signing day and talk about schools they beat in recruiting, and really it's a lot of bluster because, we don't beat Pac-12 schools on kids. We just don't. That would be pushing the envelope a little bit in terms of telling the truth. But in Brandon's case, he had a Pac-12 school, came in really hard on him at the end. They flew out there. The head coach was there. They convinced him to visit, offered him, pushed really hard the weekend before the signing day in December, and to his credit, and we're very proud of him for being a man of his word and hanging on to his commitment and staying with us. So, beating a Pac-12 school, if we never do it again, we did it on this kid, and we're proud of that and proud of him.
So speaking of Oregon State, next man down the list, Trajan Cotton, a cornerback who is just going to be a sophomore here for the Grizzlies, but coming here from Oregon State. Tall, long, really good things on his film.
Well, he's a good-looking kid. When we walked in here, I just saw him in the weight room. So he's working hard. He's getting immersed into our program. We feel strongly about Trajan and his ability to help us. We've been short-handed at corner each of the last 2 years. Those guys are hard to find for us. It seems like we didn't have any when we walked in the door. Everybody that's played corner for us, with the exception of our true freshman Corbin Walker last year, has been recruited as a wide receiver. So we're trying to evolve. In order to do that, because guys go out the door, we need to take a few transfers and try to shore that up. And we think Trajan can really be a guy that contributes early on.
Asher Kroy, a name that is well known throughout the state, coach, and he was an all-state running back for the Bozeman Hawks, ran for 330 yards, 3 touchdowns, leading a state title.
333, I think, Riley.
Not bad. A lot of threes in there, right, coach? But you get him from Bozeman, and a guy you think can play linebacker for you guys.
Well, I think Asher could play a lot of things. I'm not sure he can't play running back, but we're going to play him at linebacker. He's a tough guy. He's got good speed and agility. He really showed up. Again, I keep going back to summer camp. He really showed up in summer camp. In fact, on our field at camp, he was better than his junior film in high school. We were a little wishy-washy initially on his junior film in high school, and then he really showed up in camp, and then he just took off during his senior season. He's got a great family. His parents are great. His dad's been a high school coach in the state. His dad played here. Guy Kroy was a guy that we've all known for years, and we're certainly excited about Asher. And then obviously the 330-plus yards in the state AA championship game over in Butte this November really opened some eyes.
Going back to that defensive secondary, coach, Rishi Daniels is the next guy on the list, a safety from Seattle Prep, Seattle, Washington. How do you think he's going to help that defensive secondary going down the road? What does he bring to the table?
Well, Rishi's a good athlete. A lot of our friends in Seattle know of him, and we're high on him as we started to look at him. His father, Aaron, played at the University of Idaho, And it's always kind of fun. You know, we talked about Asher Kroy stealing one out of Bozeman, another one out of Bozeman High, and then, you know, to get a guy that's dad played at Idaho to come our way when they were recruiting him was great. He's got a great family. Was in his home 2 weeks ago, last week, and I'm all over the place. It's hard to keep track of where I've been the last couple of weeks, but they're just great people. And Rishi's a good athlete. He's got good ball skills, and as he matures and grows into a college football player, he'll be a good player for us.
We go back to the offensive side in a group that you were very deep at last year, arguably the best position group in the country at wide receiver. You'll add another speedster to that group, and you go to the Kalispell connection and go get Drew Deck.
Yeah, another guy from Kalispell. We've got a bunch of them on the team, and another guy out of Glacier High. We've got kids from both high schools, but you know, Drew's a guy who made some really eye-opening plays. He was on our radar. His junior film was he was a human highlight. I mean, he made a bunch of plays, and with Jerry Louis McGee going out the door, he's a player like Jerry. He's got great movement with the ball in his hands. He's hard to tackle in space. He made a catch on an interception. We watched Sentinel versus Glacier live this fall on a Friday night over at Missoula County High School, and he made a one-handed interception where he went way off the ground, and he's got the ability to make highlight reel plays. And you know, he's not much. He's like some of our guys, Jerry included, where we don't let him get off the bus first because they aren't real impressive physically, but he's impressive when he's got the ball in his hands.
Another wide receiver up next, Aaron Fontes, from one of two guys from Oxnard, California. Really high-powered offense down there in Oxnard. He's built a little bit differently. Maybe let him get off the bus a bit first. He's 6'1", but you know, really high-powered offense, like I said, down in Oxnard, and he was a big part of it.
Well, Aaron Fontes is he's a fun guy to be around. He's got a lot of personality. Had a great visit with them 2 weeks ago down at his place. His dad. I told his dad when I left, I didn't realize he had a side job as a stand-up comedian. His folks and his siblings, they're engaging, they're fun to be around. I laughed the whole time I was in their house. I truly enjoyed spending time with them. But Brent Peace did a really nice job we're going to talk about Aaron's teammate here in a minute, but Brent did a nice job of staying on Aaron, and he's a classic example of the early signing day working for us and for him, because you know, he was getting a lot of recruiting attention, and there were numerous people that were kind of wishy-washy and just not sure what they were going to do. And his older brother had gone and played at Utah, and so he'd seen the recruiting process before. And finally we got to like the night before signing day last time, and he just said, heck with it. Brent did a nice job of coaching him through it. We talked to him the night before, and he just said, heck with it. I love Montana. I loved my visit there. Missoula is where I think I want to be anyway, so I'm just going to go ahead and sign. I don't know what would have happened for him in January. That's kind of the roll of the dice for kids that are being recruited. But he loves the place. He's going to fit in, and he's got big playability. And, you know, we see what our wide receivers have done here over the past couple of years with Brent's tutelage and their abilities, and he is like those guys that are making the plays for us with Mitch and Sammy and Samori.
We'll stay in the state of California. We know how up front always a priority here on signing day, and Kevin Good, a finisher up front, 3.9 GPA as well that you're adding to the program.
Yeah, Kevin's a great kid. He's got a big frame. He came for a game with his mom towards the end of the season, and it was just kind of blown away by it, and he knew this is what he wanted to do. He had a lot of people recruiting him as well, and he kind of wanted to get out of California a little bit, and decided this was the place. And obviously, as the three of us have done this a little bit, talked about it a substantial number of times, we want to bring in big bodies. We have to have front guys. We have to bring them along, and we're still in the development process with all of our offensive linemen. These guys take years to develop. They need weight room time. They need to train like that, and Kevin's a guy that's got great ability, and you know, we're going to throw him in that weight room next door to us right now for a couple of years, and you guys will like what you see coming out of there.
Sticking with the line, but going over the defensive side of the ball, one of the more well-known and maybe sought-after recruits in the state of Montana, Journey Grimsrud out of Huntley Project. He's a big-time get for you in the state.
He is. He's a good get for us. The funny thing with Journey is that Asher Kroy was his high school teammate for 3 years at little old Huntley Project High School, which is just east of Billings. And we're excited about Journey. His mom and his grandfather came on his visit with him. I think everybody had a great time. They enjoyed it. We have with this group, we have a great group of parents as well as kids, and we're excited about Journey. He's a big, fast guy. Sky's the limit for him. He's not even begun to, like a lot of small-town Montana kids, he's not even begun to scratch the surface of what he's going to be.
I think when you look at skill position guys, Coach, and really look at their high school stats to see how much they dominate, Xavier Harris would be one that qualifies in that, a 3-star explosive running back, Pac-12 interest, and his numbers are pretty eye-popping.
Yeah, he's got great film. He's got great numbers. He's Aaron Font's teammate. I think because the run game was so good with Xavier that sometimes the passing game got overlooked. They had a great passing game too, and Aaron made a bunch of plays. But Xavier was our we tried to rank our running backs because sort of like the quarterbacks, we're not going to take a whole bunch of those. And so we kind of, especially with the smaller class like this, he was our top guy. And Justin Green, who will be his position coach, ended up recruiting him, and just a really good get. And Xavier's visited with his mom and his grandparents, and he's a great kid. He's working hard, and when he gets here, he's just going to go, I think, this direction rapidly.
Next up is the second of our Oregon State combo, the cornerbacks, Omar Hicks, another tall guy, 6'1". He's got to have to make an immediate impact as a redshirt senior.
Well, he is. He's got, and when a guy only has 1 year left to play, it's good to have him on campus now. Whether they're JC or any kind of transfer, it seems like it takes them a year to get going, or at least half a year. So you're really, if they're 1 year guys and they come in August, you're really looking for the second half of the season to be productive. And so with him being here, it really helps. He's an engaging young fella, always got a smile on his face. He's excited to be here. He wants to contribute. He's a good player. He's a big, athletic corner. We're excited about what he can bring to the table. You know, the one thing that he said to me 2 weeks ago when he walked in the door, it was his first workout with the team, and he grabbed me, and the first day he said, "Man, we have a big team," which is music to my ears. I didn't want to tell him most of them are freshmen, redshirt freshmen, but to have a guy walk from a Pac-12 locker room to our locker room and talk about the size and stature of our team excited me, meaning we're getting some bigger bodies and some more stature in our locker room. And then the second day, he came and grabbed me. He said, "Man, these weight room workouts are no joke." So, again, you go to a Pac-12 player thinking that our work ethic and our effort level in the off season is above and beyond, probably says we're doing the right things. So glad to have Omar.
You mentioned players being at the top of your list for positions, and I think this guy certainly qualifies there when we talk about Jace Johansen, a linebacker out of Park City, Utah. High praise with a comparison to Brock Coyle a little bit during the recruiting process.
Yeah, I kind of compared him to Brock in high school. Now we'll see if that moves on, and we're comparing him to Brock going out the door. That'd be really good for Chase and for Montana. But stature-wise and movement-wise, he did remind me of Brock in high school. And that is high praise, certainly. But Chase is a guy that makes a lot of plays. He's a tough physical guy. He's a high, again, a high GPA guy, smart guy. Went to Park City High School, so he's kind of a well-rounded dude. Sees a lot of different things and the winter sports and all that stuff, which we enjoy some around here ourselves. So he had kind of an affinity for Montana and Missoula, and he came to camp, did very well. He came up to some games and really loved the place. And he was recruited by numerous other folks, and he was kind of waiting around a little bit like Fonts, and he just kind of decided this was the place and jumped in December.
Another local guy and one of the big gets in Montana. A guy comes from a really small town in Phillipsburg to Sentinel last year, and it makes an impact. Jackson Lee going to play running back for you.
Yeah, Jackson's a guy that we really liked. His film at Phillipsburg in the 8-man game was great. That's predominantly where we had evaluated him and offered him. He came to camp, and we were sold on Jackson. He was sold on this place. His parents, grandparents, all that, they love the University of Montana. They love Missoula, and he basically grew up like the majority of kids in this state. He wanted to be a Montana Grizzly. He wanted to play in our stadium here, and so he jumped in pretty early on. But we're really happy about Jackson. We're excited. Not sure where we're going to play him. We might play him at running back. We might play him at safety. He's athletic enough to and physical enough at a young age to get in the mix early. So back to Riley's question, he's probably a guy that has a chance. But we're excited about Jackson Lee. I'm glad he got that year at Sentinel this year, so it was fun to have him in town and have him around every weekend at our games, and he didn't have to figure out where the other 6 players are coming from next fall. He'll have seen it a little bit.
Well, now the furthest player that will travel to Missoula for college will be go to the Islands to get your 3rd offensive lineman in this class in Kela Lincoln.
So Kela Lincoln is I went out to see him and his family, he and his family last Friday. Got to go to Hawaii for the day, which sounds great. And
the tan looks great.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. I didn't see enough of the sun to get one, unfortunately, but that always sounds great to go to Hawaii. Try going to Kona from Missoula for a day. It's not quite as glamorous as you'd think, but boy, they treated us well. We had a awesome gathering at the family's house, and I ate too much because I love the food. If I lived there, I'd be 400 pounds, but it was just great. So he's got a great support group, excuse me, in Hawaii that have entrusted us with him. He is a little bit unique because he signed in December sight unseen. I mean, his parents and people that are advising him kind of accepted us at our word that we were going to take care of him, and this was a great place. He was signed and had never been here. None of them had ever been here. They came 2 weeks ago to visit. So there was a little more snow on the ground than they had in Kona, but other than that, he loved the place. He showed up off the plane with flip-flops and shorts on, and I said, I can do the shorts. You might think about some shoes, though, at some point. So we're excited about Kela. He went to Hawaii Prep, which is on the Big Island. Just a wonderful family, a great kid, and like I mentioned with Kevin a minute ago, he's a guy who's just begun the process. He is going to be a big, athletic, fast, go-get-it dude.
Coming back to the state of Montana and Glacier High School, it's been very good to the Grizzlies over the years. Henry Noose, defensive lineman, and as you mentioned earlier when we were talking, he's a bit of a late bloomer and maybe a surprise for some people. Yeah,
Henry's what I would consider maybe a little more typical Montana kid, meaning he's flying under the radar and then all of a sudden he busts loose in his senior year. He's really worked hard in the weight room with our former strength coach, Mike Gerber, up there, and Gerber's just done a great job with both he and Drew Deck. And, it's just his development over the last year to maybe 8 months has been phenomenal. And he really plays hard. He loves to play. He doesn't say a dang word. He just goes and gets after it. And, I'm pretty fired up about Henry. I think that when you line up Henry with Journey, that we've got 2 pretty good-looking high school defensive ends.
Coach, you go to Butte and get your first of 2 Butte products that will be in this signing class, and some bloodlines in this one as well.
Yeah,
Guido Ocello.
Sure. So Guido Ocello is the son of Guy and Missy, and or Melissa, as she's known in these days. When she was a little kid, she was known as Missy, but she's also known as Mick Delaney's daughter. So really fun to have them involved, and I've known Guido's parents for a long time, his mother for a real long time, and we're thrilled to have Guido. He's got a great frame. He hasn't played a lot of football. He's kind of a guy that majored in hockey growing up, and he's come on. He's grown like 6 inches in the last 15 months. So he's a big, tall kid that catches the ball well, and his mother's the ringleader of our freshman parent group, and we're excited to have them as part of this family again.
Next up, the third transfer in this class, Robbie Patterson, coming from Saddleback, a quarterback. So anytime anybody hears the word quarterback, they want to know, what are his strengths, what are his weaknesses, what do you see him, or how do you see him fitting in?
Yeah, and the coach always says, we'll see when spring ball starts. So I'm not going to just drop the mic on you and walk out of here at that, Taves. But Robbie's a great kid. Obviously, at Saddleback Community College has been good to us over the years, and including Cam Humphrey came from there. It's kind of ironic that we have our two oldest quarterbacks on our roster from the same JC. But Mark McElroy, his coach, really thought highly of Robbie. He had an injury and didn't play this year, so we were watching film from a year ago, and then they had another kid that signed elsewhere this year that we were looking at as well. And we kind of had to – we were on them both early, and we kind of had to choose – between the two, and we decided on Robbie, and I think we could have they might have just switched spots had we, because the other school wasn't pulling the trigger quite as fast, and so we ended up with Robbie. He can run it, he can throw it. He's not a big, tall, drop back looking guy. That's not who he is, but he's a guy that's got running ability. He's got all the throws, got a real good feel for the game, in my opinion, and we're excited to see how far he can come in spring ball and see what happens with that challenge. And then, when you have spots open up in your quarterback depth, transfers are the way to go. We want to be a high school recruiting class, but we're going to play Graves on defense this spring to see how that goes, so that opens up some room in the quarterback spot.
Well, Coach, you had an All-American long snapper last year in Matthew O'Donohue, and now you go and get a long snapper from Oregon and Grayson Peibel. That his long snapping has been described as hypnotic.
Oh, that's so funny. So, yeah, there we go, long snapping. We've been good in that area, and we'll be good there with this kid too. We have a specialist camp because you can't really judge guys off their high school film, punting, kicking off, or long snapping for that matter very well. Long snapping probably is easiest to evaluate, but we won't take a guy at any of those positions unless, all right, they come to our specialist camp. That's a hard, fast rule for us. We won't take him. So he came to our camp. He was number one out of our camp. We had two other guys we liked. I'd say they were 2A and 2B behind him, but he jumped in, and we're excited about him. It's funny, you talk to these long snapper guys, they're kind of like the Australian guys with the punting. They think the game revolves around the punter. The object's not to punt or long snap, but when you do, you got to be able to do it, and we're glad that we've got him.
Well, back to the quarterback room, Coach, and another name that people around here are awful familiar with, Gatorade Player of the Year, Carson Ross from just down the road in Hamilton. Where we're going to go for the spring game?
Yeah, Carson's got a lot of ties to our program. He's Jordan Tripp's cousin. Mm-hmm. He's Gatorade Player of the Year. He was our early committed quarterback. We kind of made that decision last spring that he was the guy we were going to go on first and foremost, and we're certainly excited to have Carson. He's a big athletic guy, man. He's a good-looking kid in his uniform, and coached by a former Grizzly at Hamilton High with Bryce Carver, and it's just it's fun to have these people in the family. Again, the extended family are people that we've been associated with, and I think that kind of speaks volumes with some of these guys, whether it's Jackson Lee or Carson or or Guido Ocello. I mean, these are people that know us intimately as coaches and how we do business, and they're sending us their kids. So that's always kind of rewarding they know what we're about, and they want their kids to be part of it, and that's must mean we're doing the right things.
The 8th Montana native in this class, Coach, is Matt Simpkins, another product from Butte Central that come over to grab and play tight end.
Yeah, Matt's also a high school basketball player and just a good athlete. He's got a great frame. He really showed up in our camp. Again, watching his film as sort of like Asher Kroy, watching his film as a junior, we were kind of him and Han a little bit, but when he came to camp, he really showed up, and he had a great senior year. And when you start looking at these guys, their frames, their size, I'm anxious for the future with a lot of these guys, including Matt, because in a few years he's going to be a good-looking guy.
And last but certainly not least, Coach, going back to the defensive side of the ball, Atjo So from Murray, Utah, a 6'1" cornerback. Really like to film on this guy too.
Yeah, I do too. I'm glad you did, Tapes.
Oh, I like I haven't saying it.
Atjo So, you're going to be able to spit that one out, Riley.
Quick for an interception or two.
Yeah, exactly. So for 6 would be great once in a while. And Atjo's he's a tall, long-armed, high-hipped cornerback. Played Murray, which is the south end of Salt Lake City. His parents are immigrants from Liberia, so he's kind of a first-generation American-born kid. It was fun to sit in the house and the parents aren't generationally real versed in college football, but they were tuned into what we're doing and how we're recruiting them and getting degrees, and they understand all of that, and just really great folks. But it's funny to sit in the living room and obviously English is a second language, and talking to the parents, and you talk to the kids, and they sound like just the kid over at Hellgate. You wouldn't, if you close your eyes, you would think they're people from 2 different places. So Atjo's an awesome guy. Everybody at his school loves him, says he's a wonderful, wonderful kid. We talked to everybody that we could that knew him and got nothing but the highest recommendation on him, his character, how much fun he is to be around. And then all the college coaches that recruit in the state of Utah think we kind of stole one there, which is, good for us. That's kind of what, if we're going to get a big-time player, that's got to be the perception. You got to have the, Utah or whomever thinking, maybe we should have gone on that guy. We wanted to, but we didn't for some reason, and he ended up here, which is good for us.
Here's a phenomenal class, 22 in total, the nuts and bolts of it, 8 Montana products, 3 of them signing here in February, 3 transfers as well. Good mix of positions. Coach, before we let you go on with the rest of your day, give us an update on how winter conditioning is going. I know it's one of your favorite parts of the off-season.
Yeah, I enjoy the winter because I think we do, to a large part, build our team this time of year. So our guys have been lifting for 3 weeks, and we started the running and morning conditioning part yesterday. We'll go again tomorrow, and so they're going 5 days a week. I like this group. I'm excited to coach them. Right now we're faced with taking our senior class, their names off the board, and it looks like it's got a bunch of holes. So we're all worried about developing this team. But when we get to August and September, we're going to like this group. And the sky's the limit for this football team. But they have to be willing to put in the work, and they have to be willing to sacrifice and give of themselves if this team's going to be what we want it to be.
I think we're all done, Coach. Yeah,
that's going to do it for the 2020 Griz Signing Day Special. Our thanks to Aaron Heiner for the master control back behind the scenes, as well as Austin Valley for Sports Information Director Eric Tabor, head football coach Bobby Hauck. First of many. Again, thanks for tuning in to meet the 22 newest members of the Grizzly football program.